Hi there, I'm B. I'm a writer and a dreamer. I have fun making these videos, and it would be great if you can show your support by liking our videos, commenting, and subscribing to our channel. Thank you.
You sure this thing isn't dangerous? The scavenger's claws clicked nervously against the smooth, plastic disc. The Terran artifact spun lazily on its string, back and forth, as if mocking the entire concept of alien technological superiority. To the crew of the Graxel scavenger fleet, it looked harmless enough, a child's toy, retrieved from the wreckage of yet another forgotten Terran colony world. But if history had taught the galaxy anything, it was this: never underestimate humans and their uncanny ability to turn absolute nonsense into weapons of mass destruction. Of course, no one told Zrick, first officer of the Graxel Harvester 12, that he was currently fiddling with what would soon be known across 12 spiral arms as the Terran Gravity Oscillator. He just thought it was shiny and fun and, worst of all, rhythmic. Dangerous? He sneered, ignoring his crewmate's warning. It's a string tied to a rock. These humans are even dumber than the stories said. Look at it spin, return, spin, return. They wasted resources to build this. He gave the yo-yo a good flick, and it plummeted down the string, spun, and snapped back to his claw with a satisfying clack. The crew flinched. Somewhere in the distance, the ship's sensors hiccuped. The Graxel weren't geniuses, but they were scavengers, meaning they spent most of their lives poking through wrecks of superior civilizations and somehow surviving. They had seen human relics before: rusting firearms, cracked helmets, entire libraries of something called rom-com DVDs that allegedly broke the minds of three empires. But this was laughable, until it wasn't. The third spin was the problem. Zrick really put his wrist into it this time, and the yo-yo didn't just travel down and up, it hummed. Not like a normal hum, but a low, bone-deep vibration that made the walls of the flagship tremble. The bridge lights flickered. Control panels chirped error codes in languages no one had time to translate. And then came the sound, a thrum, like the universe clearing its throat. The ship's hull, forged from the ultra-rare mineral Corsium-9, had a little-known property. It resonated under specific oscillating mass frequencies. No one knew this because until that moment, no species in recorded history had been suicidal enough to build an oscillating toy and then spin it for fun. Humanity, of course, had done this casually and marketed it to children aged 6 and up. The yo-yo's vibrations synced perfectly with the Corsium hull. A shock wave rippled outward, invisible and merciless. On the ship's rear sensors, 3 pursuing vessels, sleek predators from a rival scavenger clan, shuddered mid-warp. One's engines collapsed inward. Another spiraled into a debris field. The third disintegrated into glowing chunks of scrap. Zrick stopped mid-spin. Did I just do that? The crew stared. No one dared answer. Status report. He barked, trying to sound in control. The navigator hissed. 3 hostiles destroyed. Captain, first officer, sir, by gravitational resonance? Zrick blinked at the yo-yo, still swinging gently on its string. A plastic disc, no larger than his palm, had just wiped out a warband that had been harassing them for cycles. He puffed up his thorax, already imagining the legends that would be told. I, Zrick the Bold, have uncovered a new weapon of ultimate power. The communications officer muttered, "It looks like a toy." Silence. This is a Terran gravity weapon. Clearly, humans left it as a warning. Or maybe a key to their arsenal. The crew nodded hesitantly. Scavengers knew better than to argue when their superior officer started rewriting history to make himself look smart. Word spread faster than warp drives. Within a day, the Graxel fleet was broadcasting encrypted boasts across the smuggler networks. We have harnessed the Terran Gravity Oscillator. By the end of the week, 6 major warlords had already dispatched spies to steal it, researchers to study it, and assassins to kill Zrick. Back on Earth, well, what was left of Earth, Tony Vega was practicing yo-yo tricks in a Brooklyn basement, blissfully unaware that the fate of the galaxy now depended on his ability to walk the dog. Meanwhile, the Graxel Harvester 12 was experiencing side effects. Every time Zrick spun the yo-yo, weird things happened. Lights dimmed. Gravity plates misfired. One time, the ship's entire pantry of preserved flesh pods spontaneously defrosted, flooding the mess hall in what would forever be remembered as the Great Goose Tsunami. Did Zrick stop? Of course not. He doubled down. The yo-yo became his obsession, his identity, his proof that he, not some ancient Terran monkey, had discovered the weapon that would change galactic balance forever. He began hosting training sessions, forcing his crew to try the yo-yo under his supervision. Half of them got tangled. The other half nearly imploded their quarters. One particularly ambitious cadet managed a double loop that cracked an asteroid in half. Other scavenger captains began to notice. Rival clans demanded to see this so-called Terran weapon. When Zrick refused, they tried to ambush him. That went about as well as you'd expect. Mid-attack, Zrick idly spun the yo-yo during negotiations, and the enemy fleet lost power, drifting helplessly into a nearby star. The legend grew. The Terran gravity oscillator, they whispered, a weapon so devastating it makes black holes look like party tricks. Some claimed humans had wiped themselves out with it. Others believed it was just the beginning, the training wheels for a far greater arsenal of toys left hidden across the cosmos. And thus began the panic. War councils assembled. Empires declared martial law. The word yo-yo was added to 3 separate galactic do-not-speak lists, alongside plague, nanite swarm, and politics. But the funniest part? Humanity still had no idea any of this was happening. While galactic powers scrambled to replicate the oscillations, commissioning massive spinning engines, oscillating satellites, even entire moons rigged with cables, Tony Vega was teaching a group of kids in Queens how to rock the baby. The gulf between perception and reality was staggering. To humans, the yo-yo was a toy. To the galaxy, it was a weapon of unimaginable destruction. And all because one scavenger had the attention span of a toddler and the luck of a sitcom protagonist. By the end of the month, mercenary bands were bidding for contracts to retrieve authentic Terran yo-yos. Counterfeit markets exploded. Traders sold knockoff discs that spun once and then snapped off the string, usually embedding themselves in someone's forehead. Black market engineers whispered about triple spin prototypes, as if humans hadn't been doing triple spins since the 1980s. The Graxel, of course, couldn't hold onto their secret forever. Every empire wanted a piece of the oscillator, and that, inevitably, meant Earth was dragged into the mess. Because when the galaxy finally realized the only species truly capable of handling yo-yos with any consistency was humanity itself, well, they weren't about to let Tony Vega live in peace. He would be drafted, as the Galactic Council put it, into the deadliest tournament in history. But that part comes later. For now, picture Zrick, still on his bridge, smugly spinning his yo-yo while the universe shook around him, convinced he had unlocked forbidden Terran war science, when in truth, he just weaponized recess. And the galaxy would never recover. Why are they all spinning toys now? That was the bewildered complaint of a Zalorian warlord as he watched his elite fleet commanders stand in a circle, clumsily flicking plastic discs up and down like children caught at recess. No one had a good answer, except that apparently this was what military strategy looked like now. It all started when the Graxel broadcasts leaked. The so-called Terran gravity weapon had obliterated 3 pursuing ships with nothing more than a string and a disc. The galaxy, forever desperate for new ways to blow itself up, collectively decided the yo-yo must be humanity's hidden doomsday device. And in true galactic fashion, every empire immediately declared, if we don't have it, we're doomed. Cue the arms race. Within weeks, warlords were holding research briefings where generals tried to say yo-yo with a straight face. Engineers built massive prototypes the size of orbital stations. Some idiot even rigged a moon with cables, spun it once, and accidentally altered the moon's orbit straight into the gas giant it was circling. Billions died, but hey, progress. The arms race wasn't just military, it went cultural. Markets overflowed with knockoff Terran yo-yos. Merchants swore they had authentic human-grade, ones recovered from Earth itself. Spoiler, they were just injection-molded copies, often painted neon pink with glitter, which somehow made them more terrifying to alien buyers. Prices skyrocketed. You could trade a small moon for a single yo-yo. Interstellar smuggling cartels stopped running spice and started running toys. Yo-yo piracy became a thing. And with piracy came tournaments. At first, it was simple bravado, rival captains betting whose yo-yo spun longer before tangling. But like all bad ideas, it escalated quickly. Soon entire fleets were wagering planetary bombardments on trick-offs. Lose a match, and your opponent didn't just laugh at you, they glassed your colonies. Empires fell because a general couldn't land around the world without smacking himself in the forehead. The Graxel, who started this entire mess, tried to hold onto their lead. Zrix strutted across hollow feeds, claiming he alone could unleash the oscillator's full destructive potential. But it didn't matter. Every race wanted their own champion. Dozens of species trained soldiers in the yo-yo arts. One insectoid race snapped half its limbs trying to copy Walk the Dog. A gelatinous species kept absorbing their yo-yos mid-spin, leading to catastrophic internal detonations. Casualties mounted, but no one dared stop. And all the while, humanity was blissfully unaware. Or at least, most of humanity. Because while alien fleets were bankrupting themselves trying to master spin physics, one man's name began to appear in intercepted chatter again and again. Tony Vega. Three-time Brooklyn Yo-Yo Open champion. Local legend. The only human whose Vega snapback was whispered about in alien war rooms with the same tone reserved for supernova events. It began innocently. Some alien researchers unearthed archived human footage. Tony on a grainy YouTube clip, shirtless in a basement, casually landing a double-loop sleeper like it was nothing. To humans, this was just a dude flexing his skills. To aliens, it was proof that humanity bred weapon masters in basements and uploaded training manuals for free. The panic hit fever pitch. Galactic intelligence reports screamed, "This human is the weapon bearer. Capture at all costs." But here's the kicker. Tony had no idea. He was living paycheck to paycheck, teaching kids in Queens how to rock the baby, eating cold pizza, and wondering why his channel had suddenly hit 10 million alien subscribers overnight. His comments section had gone from "sick trick bro" to "our empire kneels before the oscillator master. When will you annihilate our enemies?" He assumed it was a prank. Meanwhile, alien warlords were holding entire council meetings where generals waved his YouTube clips like classified intel. Observe the technique. No hesitation. Perfect string tension. They treated Tony Vega's highlight reel with the same reverence they once reserved for weapon schematics. And so the arms race crystallized into something far worse. The Interstellar Yo-Yo Circuit. It wasn't official at first, just scattered duels in asteroid belts and ruined colonies. But soon, warlords realized they could skip the whole messy ships blowing each other up thing and instead send their champions to yo-yo it out. Winner claimed planets. Loser buried their people. It was brutal efficiency, wrapped in absurdity. And for all their efforts, no alien could beat the humans. Which led to the inevitable conclusion. They needed a human champion. Not just any human. The human. Tony Vega. The Council of Nine Empires made the declaration with all the pomp and ceremony of a galactic summit. To ensure fairness, the oscillator's true master must compete. Translation: abduct the guy from Brooklyn and make him spin toys for galactic survival. The arms race reached its peak the day they grabbed him. Alien ships descended, cloaked and bristling with weapons, not to wage war, but to kidnap a man whose greatest life achievement was winning a local yo-yo championship 3 years in a row. Tony didn't resist, not because he was intimidated, but because they promised free pizza on the ship. The galaxy had no idea what it had just unleashed. What they thought was a desperate recruitment of the Terran yo-yo master was, in truth, the equivalent of giving a human the world's biggest stage and daring him to show off. And if history had proven anything, it was this. The fastest way to lose to humans was to challenge them at something they'd already been bored enough to perfect. By the end of the second month, fleets weren't even bothering with military drills. Instead, generals barked at soldiers to train your loops, while weapon engineers tried to invent spin enhancers. Black markets were flooded with string variants, quantum braided, antimatter dipped, neutron threaded. All useless, because the only thing that mattered wasn't the yo-yo. It was the hands that held it. And every alien in the galaxy was about to learn what it really meant when humanity got competitive. You want me to do what? Tony Vega stared at the 8-foot-tall insectoid thing that had just teleported into his basement. His yo-yo hung limp at his side, string tangled from an earlier practice run. Behind him, his YouTube livestream chat was going insane, half the comments begging him to destroy the insect man, the other half demanding to know if this was an elaborate sponsorship stunt. The insectoid, representative of the Galactic Council of 9 Empires, clicked its mandibles with what was probably meant to be solemn dignity. Champion Vega, you have been summoned to the Interstellar Yo-Yo Circuit. Should you fail, your planet will be reduced to ash. Tony blinked. He took a sip of his flat soda. You're telling me I gotta go play with my toy, or you'll nuke Earth? Precisely. He leaned back in his chair, exhaled through his nose, and muttered the most Brooklyn thing imaginable. Man, I knew I shouldn't have uploaded those videos. And just like that, humanity was drafted into a galactic bloodsport where planetary annihilation hinged on yo-yo tricks. The abduction wasn't subtle. The Galactic Council tried to play it dignified, summoning their fleets, cloaking their ships, staging the entire thing like some ceremonial recruitment. Except they did it over New York City, during rush hour, which meant 500,000 humans live-streamed Tony's ascension to Galactic Champion before the Council had even gotten him on board. By the time the ship cleared orbit, Earth's trending page was nothing but hashtags like hashtag Yo-Yo Apocalypse Scene, hashtag Tony Save Us. Aliens thought they were being terrifying. Humans thought it was the greatest viral stunt in history. Conspiracy forums declared it the soft launch of Avengers 9, Yo-Yo War. On board the flagship, Tony was given the rundown. The galaxy, in its infinite wisdom, had agreed that yo-yo duels were the fairest way to decide interstellar disputes. Each round of the tournament carried escalating stakes. Lose a trick off? Say goodbye to one of your cities. Drop the yo-yo mid-spin? There goes your ocean. Fail to show up at all? Kiss the entire planet goodbye. Tony listened, chewed a stale slice of pizza they'd beamed up from his fridge, and shrugged. So just win, right? That's it. The insectoid hesitated. Yes, but your opponents are the most skilled in the galaxy. They wield neutronium yo-yos, antimatter strings, oscillators crafted by singularity forges. Tony smirked. Yeah, but do they know how to rock the baby without dropping it? The ambassador stared blankly. Tony flicked his yo-yo, looped the string, and casually performed the trick while reclining in his chair. The ship's entire navigation system seized, alarms blaring as space-time itself jittered. Oh no, whispered the insectoid. He is even stronger than the legend said. The first match came fast. Tony wasn't even given time to acclimate to space travel. He was dumped on a floating arena orbiting a binary star, thousands of alien spectators chanting and hissing in anticipation. Opposite him stood a champion from the Kreeth Dominion, a hulking lizard wearing ceremonial armor and brandishing a yo-yo the size of a motorcycle tire. The crowd roared as the Kreeth slammed his yo-yo to the ground, the impact sending shockwaves rippling across the arena. Tony, wearing jeans and a hoodie, just cracked his knuckles. All right, big guy, watch and learn. He flicked his battered wooden yo-yo, the same one he'd been using since middle school. It dropped, spun, and snapped back with casual grace. The arena's gravity hiccuped. The binary star dimmed for half a second. Half the spectators fainted. Then he walked the dog. The yo-yo rolled across the platform like it had somewhere important to be. The Kreeth tried to counter with a triple spin. His string snapped. His yo-yo launched off into space, clipped a spectator's ship, and detonated its engines. The crowd went silent. The referee, a six-eyed telepath, raised all 6 hands. Victory, human! The stadium erupted. Some in awe, others in panic. The Kreeth Dominion retreated from the circuit in humiliation, muttering about dark Terran sorcery. Tony just shrugged. That's one down. Who's next? The thing about humans is, once you put us on a stage, we perform. Tony wasn't just winning matches, he was styling on them. He pulled off tricks no alien could comprehend. Eiffel Tower became a galactic legend. Brain Twister nearly collapsed in orbital habitat when he added flair. The Vegas snapback caused three empires to sign emergency treaties, convinced they'd just witnessed the activation of a weaponized singularity. Every win escalated his status. Aliens feared him. Humans worshipped him. The Interstellar Yo-Yo Circuit was broadcast across the galaxy, and Earth tuned in daily like it was the Super Bowl. Betting pools sprang up. Merch flooded the streets. Kids swapped out baseball cards for Tony Vega holograms. Humanity didn't just survive the draft, they monetized it. The Galactic Council, however, was panicking. They hadn't expected the human to win. They wanted him as a participant, a token competitor, someone to keep Earth in check. Instead, they got a swaggering New Yorker dismantling centuries-old empires with playground tricks. The stakes kept rising. Lose one round, and Earth risked annihilation. But Tony didn't lose. Not once. He walked into every match with the same smirk, the same battered yo-yo, and the same infuriating attitude, that this was all just a game. And the more he treated it like a joke, the more the galaxy feared humanity. Because if this was how dangerous humans were with a toy, what nightmares lurked in our actual arsenals? By the end of his third match, one thing was clear. The yo-yo wasn't just a toy anymore. It was a declaration. Humanity would not just play the galaxy's game. We'd own it. And Tony Vega, reluctant champion, was just getting warmed up. Ladies, gentlemen, blobs, and assorted nightmare fauna. Welcome to the Interstellar Yo-Yo Circuit Finals. The announcer's voice thundered across a stadium the size of a small planet. Every seat was packed with alien species, their countless eyes, tendrils, and bioluminescent sensory stalks glued to the arena below. Holograms beamed the event across the galaxy, ensuring that no citizen, from methane oceans to lava crust colonies, would miss the sight of Tony Vega, humanity's reluctant ambassador, stepping into the spotlight with a yo-yo dangling casually from his finger. Tony squinted at the crowd. You people ever heard of Netflix? No? Guess it's just me saving the universe again. The audience didn't understand English, but they sure understood swagger. By now, the circuit wasn't just a tournament, it was religion. What started as desperate warlords betting colonies on toy tricks had spiraled into the galaxy's defining bloodsport. Empires rose and fell, depending on who could spin their yo-yo longer without smacking themselves in the face. Treaties weren't signed in boardrooms anymore. They were settled by trick-offs on live broadcast. You want to trade rights? Beat the reigning champion at Loop the Loop. Lose? Say goodbye to your mining moons. Naturally, humans thrived. Tony wasn't the only human drafted anymore. After his early wins, dozens of governments tried sending their own Terran yo-yo prodigies into the ring. Most were amateurs, washed-out talent show hopefuls, or TikTok trick shot influencers. They didn't last long. But Tony? Tony was different. Tony had that lethal combination of raw talent, Brooklyn sarcasm, and complete inability to take anything seriously. He wasn't just playing the game, he was humiliating it. Case in point, the quarterfinal match against the Vesh Collective, a hive species that controlled 12 systems and prided themselves on their precision. Their champion emerged with a yo-yo forged from compressed neutronium, suspended on a string of living nerve tissue that screamed every time it spun. The crowd gasped in horror and reverence. Tony yawned, pulled a dinged wooden yo-yo from his pocket, and said, "Nice toy. You buy that on Etsy?" He proceeded to perform Eiffel Tower. The Vesh tried to replicate it, but their hive mind control lagged for half a second. The string tangled. Their neutronium yo-yo shot upward at relativistic speed, punctured their own orbital fleet, and triggered a chain reaction that cost them 3 colonies. The referees ruled it a forfeit. Tony shrugged. Guessed the tower fell again. The semifinals were worse. His opponent, the Abraxi Dominion, infamous for converting entire planets into weapons platforms. Their champion was an 8-limbed titan wielding a yo-yo so large it had its own gravitational field. The crowd roared when he unleashed a planet crusher loop, tearing open a wormhole mid-arena. Ships scrambled to evacuate. Tony just rolled his shoulders. Cute. Watch this. He dropped into Around the World, a trick so basic every Earth kid knew it. But when Tony did it, space-time itself stuttered. The Abraxas Titan's yo-yo veered off course, slammed into the wormhole, and collapsed it with the grace of a drunk elephant falling into traffic. The Titan howled, 8 limbs flailing, before conceding defeat. Tony blew on his fingers like a cowboy after firing a revolver. Next, by this point, the galaxy had stopped laughing. What was once ridiculous now terrified them. Each victory convinced alien leaders that humans were more dangerous than they'd ever feared. After all, if Tony Vega could bend space-time with a casual walk the dog, what horrors could humanity unleash with, say, frisbees? Hula hoops? God forbid anyone ever found a pogo stick. The betting markets went insane. Alien bookies refused to take wagers on Tony, too risky. Whole economies started fluctuating depending on whether humans would show up at the next match. Every empire scrambled to learn Terran spin techniques, only to discover that human muscle memory, born from centuries of playground boredom, couldn't be replicated. Even worse, the humans back on Earth weren't scared. They were entertained. The Interstellar Yo-Yo Circuit had become Earth's #1 broadcast. Families gathered around TVs to watch Tony dismantle alien warlords with tricks that had been corny even in the 1950s. Memes flooded the net. T-shirts with our planet hangs by a string sold out overnight. And humanity's reaction to the Galactic terror was summed up in one comment Tony made during a halftime interview. Relax. I've been doing this since 5th grade. The finals were a spectacle. The reigning champion was no small fry. Supreme Warlord Zarkoin of the Shrike Imperium, a species so feared their name alone had ended wars. His yo-yo wasn't even a yo-yo. It was a miniature black hole bound to a quantum filament, oscillating with destructive potential that could level continents. His opening trick annihilated 2 moons and sent tidal waves across 3 nearby worlds. The crowd roared. Surely, this was the end of humanity's absurd winning streak. Tony cracked open a slice of cold pizza, took a bite, and said, "Hope you stretched, buddy." He didn't use a neutronium yo-yo. He didn't use antimatter strings. He didn't wield black holes. He used his beat-up wooden yo-yo, the one with faded paint and fraying string. And he performed the Vegas snapback. One spin, one flick, the yo-yo snapped back so hard it created a resonance wave that shattered Zarkoin's black hole containment field. The warlord's yo-yo imploded, sucking in his own fleet before collapsing in on itself. Silence fell across the arena. Then chaos. The referee, trembling, raised one hand. Victory. Human. Tony didn't cheer. He didn't bow. He just shrugged. Told you guys it's just physics. And practice. Mostly practice. The crowd erupted in chants. Aliens screamed. Empires wept. And across the galaxy, one terrifying truth settled in. Humanity had just spun its way to galactic dominance. Because if this was what humans did with a toy, what nightmares were waiting in our closets? All right, who's next? No, then I'm going home. That was Tony Vega's closing line after toppling Supreme Warlord Zarkoin. No roaring speech, no chest-thumping victory lap. Just a weary New Yorker ready to catch the subway back to Brooklyn. Except the galaxy wasn't done with him. Not by a long shot. Because in the aftermath of the finals, something far more dangerous than alien fleets or neutronium yo-yos began to spread. Belief. The moment the referee declared Tony the victor, broadcasts went viral across 12 spiral arms. Entire species fell silent as they watched one human dismantle their greatest warlord with what was, to them, an incomprehensible display of Terran dominance. On planets where people had never even seen a human, murals of Tony appeared overnight. Monks whispered his name into volcanic vents. Children spun crude yo-yos carved from bones, chanting snapback like it was divine scripture. And the warlords? They panicked. Galactic intelligence reports buzzed with the same message. If this is what humanity calls a toy, what horrors lurk in their arsenals? They reviewed archived Terran artifacts with newfound dread. Rubber bands? Catapults? Water balloons? Each one suddenly looked like an extinction-level weapon waiting to be rediscovered. The council convened an emergency summit. Their official agenda: assess humanity's threat potential. The unofficial reality: figure out how not to get yo-yoed into oblivion. Every delegate was terrified, except the human one, who was Tony Vega in sweatpants, slouched at the council table, eating chips out of the bag. When asked to explain humanity's arsenal, he shrugged. We got hula hoops, frisbees, Nerf guns. You don't want to know what we could do with duct tape. Half the delegates fainted. Meanwhile, Earth leaned into it. Why not? For the first time in history, humanity wasn't the galaxy's underdog. They were the apex predator of playtime. Tony's matches were broadcast back home with Super Bowl levels of fanfare. Late-night shows roasted alien warlords for getting clowned on by a guy in a hoodie. Merchandising deals exploded. Every kid wanted a yo-yo. Every parent proudly declared, "My child will be the next Galactic champion." And Tony? He was now the most famous human alive. The problem was, he didn't want the job. "Look, I just wanted to spin some tricks and maybe teach a couple kids not to strangle themselves with the string," he told an alien reporter. "Now you psychos are betting planets on me. It's exhausting. I don't even get paid for this." The council tried to shut him up by offering him planets, fleets, and titles. He refused. "What am I going to do with a planet? Park my car on it? Forget it. You want me to keep spinning? You better throw in a lifetime pizza stipend." Thus, the Treaty of Vega was signed, an interstellar agreement binding the galaxy to peace, enforced not by fleets or superweapons, but by the threat of one irritated human with a yo-yo. Of course, not everyone accepted it. A rogue coalition formed: warlords, pirates, scavengers, anyone unwilling to live under the shadow of Terran yo-yo supremacy. They swore they would destroy Tony Vega, reclaim the oscillator's secrets, and prove once and for all that humans weren't gods. They challenged him to a final showdown. Not a duel, but a war. 10 champions at once, armed with the deadliest yo-yos ever built. The galaxy held its breath. Could even Tony survive this? The arena was colossal, a ring encircling a dying star. 10 alien champions, each wielding weapons that bent reality, stood in formation. Their yo-yos howled with power. Antimatter strings, black hole oscillators, even a construct made of raw dark energy. Together, they unleashed their fury. The star quaked. Space screamed. Tony sighed. "All right, time to end this." He flicked his yo-yo. Once. It wasn't a fancy move. It wasn't even a trick. Just a simple, clean sleeper, a yo-yo spinning at the end of its string. But in Tony's hands, it resonated. The string hummed. The disc blurred. The dying star stilled, then brightened, then pulsed in time with the yo-yo's rhythm. Every alien weapon faltered. Every dark energy construct unraveled. One by one, the champions collapsed, their yo-yos snapping apart as if the universe itself was telling them, "Sit down," the humans playing. When the sleeper snapped back into Tony's palm, the arena was silent. The star, stabilized by resonance, glowed peacefully. Tony blew on his fingers. And that's game. The warlord surrendered. The rogue coalition dissolved. And the galaxy finally accepted the inevitable. Humans weren't just another species. They were chaos incarnate. If this was what humanity did with boredom and wooden string toys, no empire dared imagine what we could do when we actually tried. The council drafted a new charter. Its first clause: never underestimate Terrans. Its second: never give them new toys. Back on Earth, Tony returned to his basement, swatting away reporters, diplomats, and cultists who had started worshipping his yo-yo. His live stream resumed, now with an audience of billions across the stars. He picked up his battered wooden yo-yo, gave a tired smile, and said, "All right, chat. Today we're learning double or nothing." Aliens trembled, because if Walk the Dog could collapse fleets, what horrors would double or nothing bring? And humanity, in true fashion, just kept spinning.